Welcome to the Central Connecticut Intergroup Speaker Meeting. My name is Peter and I'm alcoholic.
Hi, Peter.
Alcoholics Anonymous preamble states, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope each other amidst all the common problem of others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for a membership. We are self-supporting with our own contributions. AA is not out in any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorse nor oppose any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober, help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I've asked Kathleen to read how it works.
Kathleen, alcoholic.
Hey, Kathleen.
How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Kathleen.
You're welcome.
This time, help me welcome our speaker, Tom, from the Happy Hour Group, Bristol, Connecticut.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Tom, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
Hi, Tom.
Grateful to be here tonight. I was surprised I made it. Seemed like every road I got on tonight was closed or there was an accident. Maybe the first one was closed, so I wasn't involved in the accident. That's probably what it was. But I made it, and I'm here. I'm glad to be here. I've spoken a couple of years. It's good to do this. When I first came into the program, I heard a lot of talk about don't drink and go to meetings, you get your life back. And I heard that a lot. And the longer I stay in the program, the more of an alcoholic I become. And the more I realize that my life, my entire life until I got into the program, was affected by alcohol. Both my parents are alcoholic. One, my old man had to stop drinking years ago. I guess he had cirrhosis of the liver. We haven't spoken over 30 years. That was his choice. But I heard bits and pieces through my grandmother. I can guarantee you that they were hammered when they conceived me. So, I mean, right from the start, I had alcoholism, right? I don't blame them for me being an alcoholic because I picked up that first drink. I made a conscious decision to drink, not them. However, having alcoholism could be hereditary, right? That's what doctors try to tell us and stuff. So, but again, I chose to pick up that drink. My parents were violent. They fought a lot. We had a lot of trips to police stations, hospitals. I was taken away a lot to live with other family members while people were recuperating. I was taken to other relatives out of state and picked up by the cops because apparently I was kidnapped. My great-grandfather, when I was little, he was my best friend, and he really didn't like the environment I lived in, so he would take me away. And my parents would have him arrested, and the cops would have to go pick me up and stuff. So lucky for me and both of my parents, they divorced when I was young, probably 6 or 7 years old. It was a good thing because somebody probably would have died. And they gave me the choice who I wanted to live with. So I moved to New Jersey with my mom right off the bat. My mom was always a good worker, but drinking came right after work, and same thing with my old man. It was just same repetitiveness. I was like more of a burden than a child, a son. When I was in New Jersey, my mom and I got our own place, and I was a locked-key child at 7 years old. Home from school, in the house, I wanted to eat. I had to learn how to cook. I remember the first thing I ever made was a grilled cheese. I was so proud of myself. I made 2. But that's the kind of way my life started with alcohol, right? Because alcohol was involved. I bounced around a lot. I moved back to Wells, Maine with my old man and the lady that he cheated on my mom with. And I was a beach bum for about a year at Wells Beach. I hung out. I got to do whatever I wanted. Again, they were out drinking. They didn't care where I was so long as I was home by dark and locked up. Then we moved to California. And I spent 2 or 3 years out there, bounced back and forth. My mom remarried a guy in northern Maine, and he's the guy I call Dad today. He was completely against drinking. He told my mother, he gave her an ultimatum, it's a year to booze. And when I finally moved back, my mom was not 9 months pregnant. She was 9 months pregnant. And my stepdad, in January of that year, 1983, had a logging accident in the woods and was crippled for the rest of his life. So this kind of made my decision to stay there to help out on the farm. We had a small farm. I was 12 years old at the time, and my little brother was born in June that year. So my mom would hide her bottles in my hamper in my bedroom. And again, this is normal for me. This is what I've seen my whole life. And nobody ever drank sociably. It was to black out. And we read a story last night in our meeting about, I forget the name of the story, but the first paragraph of this story is my story. Part of growing up and being an adult means drinking, period. And that's the way I was brought up. We worked hard and we played harder. 14 years old, I had some buddies that were older than me, and we used to go over to Canada to party on the weekends. And if you could open the door and had American money, they'd serve you. They didn't care how old you were. So that was convenient. Sometimes it was a little tricky getting back across the customs when you're hammered, but at least I wasn't driving, not yet, not at 14. We'd either go to the bar or we'd go to the liquor store and we'd hide beer and shit all over the car and then cross. My God, if we ever got caught doing that, I'd probably still be in jail right now, smuggling alcohol across the border. So that was, pretty much high school. I worked hard. We had a farm. I worked for other farmers. We had a logging business. I did that. I left the day after I graduated high school. Moved to southern Maine. I was going to school to be a mechanic, and my uncle owned a service station in Kennebunk, Maine. So I went to work for him for the summer, and I was going to stay there, and not really sure why I didn't. Something happened, but he was just as big of a drinker as I was, so we got along really well, him and I. And I'm still 17 at this point. And then November that year, 1988, I moved to Connecticut. My oldest stepbrother, had a company here, building houses and stuff, so I went to work for him. Everybody that worked for him drank just like I did. He didn't. My older brother didn't drink much. Maybe one beer here and there, but nothing much. And I met a girl. We started dating in June 25th of 1989. And we've been together ever since. Stuck around through some rough spots. This, early 90s, there wasn't much work around. I didn't have a job. I was living in my truck. Getting liquor wherever I could. Friends, family, whatever was around. Landed a job. We moved in together. And eventually we got married. We had 2 kids. My drinking really got out of control. I would get like, have you been drinking? And I'm standing there and I'm like swaying like this, and no. And yeah, that's the response I would get. Right before something got thrown at me, it's like, okay. Then I would get sassed in the morning about my drinking. You want to see drinking? I'll show you drinking. And then one thing, and it just got really out of hand. Couldn't look at myself in the mirror anymore. Hated myself. I attempted suicide once, but I got caught right in the middle of it. It's my luck, right? I couldn't even finish. I couldn't even get started, and I got caught. But I'm not even sure I would have gone through with it. It was just one of those crazy thoughts, So we moved on from that. I ended up going to Wheeler Clinic for a employee assistance program. My wife signed me up for that. I went willingly, and I went for the interview with the guy before, and he said, so, what are you looking to get out of this? I looked him square in the eye, and I said, I want to learn how to drink sociably. And he just put his head down, and he started writing. I didn't get it at the time. Now I'm saying to myself, this guy probably hears that 100 times a day, knowing full well none of us are ever going to be there again. I didn't know I couldn't be there. But I had never, ever, ever learned how to sociably drink. I've never seen anybody do it. Other than my grandmother on my dad's side. She got a drink one day, and that was the end of it. And I said to her, Grammy, how come you can only have one drink? She says, because I don't need to. And okay. And I never thought about that till later on in life where, I needed 2 and 3 and 4. It's that physical allergy that we all have. And so Wheeler Clinic, I called out a couple of times. We were allowed to be absent. We had piss tests and all this other stuff. And I finished off with that, and I went right back to drinking. It was to please somebody else. It wasn't for me. And it worked for a little while. My kids did sports, Cub Scouts, but they really got into martial arts. They really enjoyed that. So we got them into a place, and they were on a travel team. Well, we got to know the parents, and then we'd travel throughout New England for these competitions, and we'd just get hammered every weekend, And I worked on the road a lot. I worked out of state. That was a free pass. That's great, you know. And that's where I learned how to drink in the morning. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you know I can't be at work until 7. What am I going to do now? Well, I'll have a beer. Why not? So by 7 o'clock, I'm half in the bag. And everybody else is getting ready to go to work. And I drink all day, break time, lunchtime. Drink on the way back to the hotel, and then drink until I passed out. And then that's when I couldn't stop anymore. I had to drink during the day. I had to drink in the morning. It was just insane. It's crazy to wake up in the morning and then just have to have a drink. Forget about the coffee, forget about the juice, just get a bottle of vodka and let's go to work. So I ended up, my wife asked me to leave, and I was headed to Maine. I had my car packed with all my clothes and my guns, and I got pulled over in Massachusetts for drunk driving. And I was doing, I don't know, I was cruising right along, and all of a sudden I hear a siren. I look up and I see a cop car behind me, and then I look down and I see cop cars all around me. So this guy had been following me for a minute. So I pull over, and these guys are pulling guns out of my car, and I see people driving by the highway. I'm going, man, what are they thinking? So I got arrested. Called a buddy. He came and bailed me out that night. I moved in with him in New Haven. I stayed there for about a month. That was my last drunk. That lasted 28 days. I drank, I passed out, I got up, I drank, and I passed out. I did that for 28 days straight. I don't know how I'm still alive. I don't know how my body could have consumed that much alcohol all in a row. But on the 28th day, I got a spiritual something. I got a something in my head, because I know I didn't pick up the phone. I picked up the phone and I called the friend and I said, I need help. I'm ready to go. And she came to New Haven, picked me up, and brought me to a detox in Torrington. That was December 28th, 2010. And I've been sober ever since. I never looked back. I went into an IOP, started going to meetings again, the second time, and you know, first time I went, I was drinking in the parking lot and then going in and having coffee. Like, nobody knew, right? Oh, look at this guy. He usually thinks he's fooling, right? But it was great, because my sister-in-law lived right next door to the place where I went to meetings, and I parked so she could see my car. So she'd call my wife and say, yeah, he's here. I was in it drinking, but it didn't matter. She saw my car there. So anyways, I got into the program, and I met a guy that became my sponsor within a couple of weeks. He took me under his wing. We did a lot of road traveling. We went to a lot of institutions and brought speaker meetings. We went to hospitals, rehabs. Did all my step work in the car on the way there and on the way home. You know, this isn't the kind of stuff I signed up for. I wanted to just go there and get sober and move on with my life, but couldn't do that. You know, I needed to put some effort into this program. I got involved in the Bristol Recovery Club. I do a lot of stuff at the club there. I'm a speaker seeker for the happy hour group on Wednesday. Coffee commitments. You know, it's just I got to stay involved and put the time in and put the work in and get the newcomer that comes in and embrace that person and say, sit down. You're going to be okay. You're in the right spot. Come back tomorrow. Do the same thing. You know, and it's a miracle when you watch somebody walk in with their chin down and they're just bankrupt. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, they're just shot. And 2, 3, 4 months into it, you know, they're starting to talk to people. They start to laugh a little bit. They start to feel better about themselves. And that's a wonderful feeling to watch that happen. It really is. You know, and then you get a few that come in and out, and I say this a lot. It's important to know that you have to do the work. It's a simple program, but there's work involved, right? gotta move mountains, but I gotta bring a shovel. Can't go into a meeting and dump my pity pot on the floor and have everybody feel sorry for me, and then I'm better. Doesn't work that way, at least not for me. Right? I had to get a sponsor. I have 2 sponsors now. We're actually getting ready to go through the steps together, the 3 of us. We need to let go of that crap that we've caused in the past. Any kind of resentments that I got holding on to, which I don't have resentments. I try not to let crap bother me today. You know, it was a miserable ride here. You know what? So what? I'm here. I made it here safe. That's all that mattered. And if I was going to be late or not make it, Peter, Tom, I don't know what's going on, but I don't think I'm going to make it. Right? We have phones. We can make sure this stuff happens one way or another. So I don't let things bother me today, and I can let go of that stuff because of this program. I've learned that here. Anytime I get angry or frustrated, which I can, I'm human, we have emotions, you know, I do a step 10 right away, figured out what's going on. Why am I angry? Why am I feeling this way? Is it really worth it? You know? And chances are it's not at all worth any of it. Patience, tolerance, and acceptance, I've picked up a lot of that. I'm getting better at that. I'm not perfect. I don't know that anybody is. You know, that we all still have things that bother us. But again, you've got to learn to let all that stuff go. It's important. And I was just talking with Paul here about step 1. The second half of step 1 is important too. You know, when they wrote the big book, they took the worst case of alcoholic and took them under their wings to make them better. Well, since then, they've had to raise the bar on the bottom so that low-class drunks like us could fit into this program, right? Because not every one of us have been on our deathbed in a hospital facing, you know, getting ready to die, and then now we come into AA. So we've all had a different bottom now. But the pain's the same. Doesn't mean it's not, just that we come in at different places. So that's where that second half of step 1 is important. Figuring out what part of your life is unmanageable. You know, because there's people that haven't lost anything. And they look at this and say, oh, my life unmanageable. I still have everything. I got 4 cars, 2 boats, this, that, and the other thing. But there's always chaos, right? Steps are important. There is work to do. And I'm looking forward to doing them again soon. I think we're going to start next week. This will be our first time as the 3 of us doing them together. One of my sponsors got 32 years. The other one's got 9, 8, something like that. And I'm coming up on 12, I think, or something. So it'll be interesting. You know, different views, and they've had different sponsors through the years, and I've had. So we're all we'll get this worked out in the next year. I'm really excited about it. You know, I see I'm running out of time here. And anyway, you know, I'm glad to be in this program. I'm very grateful to be here tonight. Grateful I met all you people, I don't know, 8 months ago or whatever it was when I first walked into your meeting. Glad to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Tom. Peter, alcoholic.
Hey, Peter.
Yeah. You walked into my home group. Yeah, it was about 8 months ago. You know, and then it's nice to see a new face. You know, and then you asked. I think my sponsor volunteered him and myself to speak at your home group. You know, I mean, that's how it usually works when you get a sponsor. You know, I still get volunteered by a few people in this fellowship, and it's because they care about me and want me to stay sober.
Yep.
You know, and you talked about and how it works. There's this suggested path, and it says here. You know, here are steps we took as just as a program of recovery. It didn't say we just looked at them. We took them.
Right.
You know, and in step 12 talks about the last thing. It says to practice these principles in all our affairs. Doesn't say there's no completion date, there's no graduation, no certificate. You know, we got to practice these and learn to live them in our lives on a daily basis. Some days it's not easy. Paul and I were talking before the meeting about sometimes we allow people to push our buttons. And I remember when I first came in, my first sponsor talked about having, you get this big red button on your chest that everybody pushed. And as you go through the steps, you start changing. The button gets smaller, and then you learn to move it around. Then you learn to give stuff to God, and then you able to handle situations to baffle us. It's amazing. But you talked about service work, getting involved, and and when you see somebody come in and see them starting to grow in the fellowship, the brightness in their eyes start to come out. It's amazing. I was at a meeting this past weekend, and this person shared it. It was very enjoyable to see that. And there's another guy in our home group who I watch him grow. And it's amazing to see that. And let her be alive and sober. Thanks again for your story, Tom.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Kathleen?
Hi, Kathleen, alcoholic.
Hi, Kathleen.
Tom, it was really great to hear you share. I appreciated your story. I identified with quite a bit. I think one of the things you touched on that I think is really important is the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. In other words, you don't have to have stopped before you come to AA. You can, like you talked about in your story, you were coming to AA, yet you were still drinking before you came into the meeting. And that's okay, just show up, come to the meeting. And, that's an important, to me,